So I'm with Tracey Shipley from Music in Common. Now, Tracey, what is Music in Common?
Music in Common is an organization that was founded to use the power and the magic of music to bring kids together, teenagers that normally would not associate with each other for various reasons.
Now, are you based here in Israel or are you around the world?
We actually were founded in the United States. The founder of Music in Common is a gentleman by the name of Todd Mack. He was very close friends with Daniel Pearl, who was the Wall Street Journal journalist who years ago went over to Pakistan. He's both Jewish and American, trying to find out what was happening with the shoe bomber, and was kidnapped, and probably the first well-known beheading that was done over the media, and it really made a giant impact on a lot of people, and of course a lot on Todd, because they were good friends, and through their friendship they used to play in a band together. They played at each other's weddings, and of course Todd was very devastated, as were so many other people. Todd decided after 3 years to put together a concert on Daniel's birthday in order to honor him. He called it a FOD concert, Friends of Danny, and brought together musicians from all walks of life that were friends with Daniel Pearl but didn't know each other. And did it in his backyard, and had just a few hours of wonderful music in Danny's honor. And they decided to keep that up every year. So they did that a number of years until he decided around 11 years ago that he wanted to go into the community and start working with teens in order to prevent the type of hatred that ended up taking Danny's life. So what he did was to go into schools. He's based out of Massachusetts, and he went into the school system and started working with teenagers in high schools, bringing together kids that are very different from each other. If it's jocks and punks, and if it's blacks or Hispanics or whatever, Asians, whatever backgrounds, with kids that normally do not have a line of communication, to use music as the common language, and to bring kids together to get to know each other. And the best way, what I've found as well, to do that is to give them a mission. Just to sit around and talk about things is far more challenging than saying, okay, guys, you've got such and such a time to accomplish a particular mission. And the mission was to create their own song. And they were always astounded by the fact that kids who didn't even know each other, within a short period of time, however long the workshop was, they were able to come up with a song that they felt proud about, that really expressed their inner feelings, which is something that you could do through the arts. And it worked really well in the States. Now, he did get a call and a request from Taiwan a number of years ago to come over and do that in Taiwan, and they did run a couple programs over there. And eventually, around 6 years ago, they decided to come over to Israel. They were introduced to a woman by the name of Lori Ornstein, who's involved with the folk community here, and has been working as a teacher, an English teacher down in the Negev for 15 years with the Bedouin community, and also taught in the Israeli school system. Was also familiar with the scene up north with the Israeli Arabs and the Jewish Israelis up north. So for 5 years running, she ran a workshop that was tailored to the project that they would establish in Israel. Now, that project was a bit different in that it wasn't as long-term as the ones are in the States, where they can work with the same school for a period of time. They were to pair up a Jewish school and an Arab school and do a 2-day workshop. The first day would be in one school. The second day would be in the other school. The first thing that they would do, first of all, we choose 6 to 8 high school students from each side. So you have a total of between generally around 16 kids that get together. They have to be kids who are interested in getting to know the person from the other side, who are open-minded, not necessarily convinced. We don't want to preach to the choir, but are actually looking into exploring. Has to be kids that are into music. They don't have to be the most talented, but they have to love music. And kids that are kind of activists, that have outgoing personalities, that will come to the table and actually do the work without having to be encouraged by their teachers. And bottom line, they have to speak a good English, because once they walk through the doors of our workshops, there's no Arabic and there's no Hebrew. There's just English as a common language, and music as the universal language, putting it all together.
Is it easy bringing Palestinians and Israelis together?
Actually, it's what I found is it's not easy to find the partners. Okay, that's something else I want to explain. So she did that for a number of years. Around 5 or 6 years ago, Todd approached me because of my program with Ethiopian Israelis. Thought I would be interested to get them involved with the mix as well. And he really wanted to start something in Jerusalem because he knows that it's the hotbed, and the entire universe looks at Jerusalem as the center of the core of everything. So he approached me, and I've been in Jerusalem for a number of years and very familiar with the community here. I've been working with teens for years and years and years, and was good at networking. And so I went out and spent 6 months trying to find schools that would be willing to come to the table that we can partner with. Unfortunately, in the middle of getting the schools that originally were agreeable to get involved, hit whatever you want to call it, in the summer, when just violence started pervading everywhere in Jerusalem, a lot of places around the country, but particularly in Jerusalem, it became a kind of very volatile place, a feeling that we haven't had for a number of years, with all the things, with the kidnapping of the 3 yeshiva kids who were ultimately murdered, and then the kidnapping of this Muslim boy, Mohammed, who they found burned to death, and it's alleged that was killed by Jewish radicals, which is something that's unusual in the Jewish community, the Israeli community. And then people just had an excuse to escalate the situation worse. So because all of that was happening, even though I'd already secured a lot of schools to be involved, my Arab schools started pulling out. So here we were planning on the staff coming over from the States in November, and we needed 3 or 4 pairings here in Jerusalem, and I lost 90% of my Arab schools. So, and even with the Jewish schools, it was hard for me to get through to the right person that would say, let's go for it and let's do it. So that wasn't so easy either. I don't know how much of it was political. I don't know how much of it was bureaucratic. But finally, when we came around to November, things got even worse. It was totally escalated. So in the process, I managed to pull on 4 schools, actually 5 schools. The Hartman Institute in Western Jerusalem. They have a great reputation. They're nationalistic, religious. However, they're extremely open-minded. And some say kind of left-oriented, but I think just more so open-minded to different perspectives and to bringing people together. And the principal, they have 2 schools underneath the institute. They have a girls' school and a boys' school. And these schools were really looking to partner with an Arab school and didn't know how. They wanted the students to have the opportunity to get to know the other side, to see that they're not all our enemies, that they're all not all evil, that there's something going on there that we need to know a little bit more about. And I found them through an organization called B'Kihila, which means in the community, which is an organization which gets funding from the Ministry of Education, and gives schools funding if they get involved with community work. And they had a number of Jewish schools and a number of Arab schools. So ironically, I went to them in order to find the Jewish schools. So I was able to pull Hartman on board. And Corey was another school. It's an external school, and they're very open to exciting and creative ways of dealing with things. So they were excited from the get-go. In reference to the Arab schools, through friends of friends of friends, I was able to get to the Jerusalem school out in Beit Hanina. And this is a school that's run totally in English. So the language was not an issue. They're very open-minded. The principal is actually American. And but they still have some extreme issues against Israel, the Israeli government, the Israeli army, things that they've seen out in Beit Hanina that have disturbed them. What's so unique about the Jerusalem school is that they actually have a peace study curriculum. So the kids are learning about Martin Luther King and Gandhi. They even have a peace cafe with sayings from all these different leaders on the walls. So the kids are trained in peace studies, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they buy it. So the school was very excited to get them involved in a program where they can actually get to know kids from the other side and look at them as individuals as opposed to a nation. So they ended up getting on board. In addition, I was told through a colleague about a school called the Promise School. And this is an Arab school that's in Shuafat, which is on the way to Beit Hanina. It actually is very close to where Muhammad was kidnapped. The school was founded by Israeli Arab who's originally from Jaffa, and she moved with her family to outside of Jerusalem. She had 5 kids, and she wanted them all to get the Israeli matriculation. She felt that that would help them succeed in life, and she wants to raise her kids in a feeling that the other is not our enemy. So she couldn't find a school that she felt was good enough for her kids, so she started it on her own over 3 years ago. And she has, from kindergarten through 12th grade, 250 students and growing. She took over an apartment building. Her big dream is to get a real building for her school, and she's doing whatever she can, but she can't do everything. She herself, her background, she's an accountant, but she did this for her kids. So she is teaching Hebrew and running this school, and it's a school that the kids don't want to go home at the end of the day. It's really like their second home. So I went over to meet with her, and she was extremely excited about the project. And so we got her on board to partner with Ancori, the Jerusalem school, to partner with the boys and girls school with Hartman. So we brought 4 girls, 4 boys from Hartman, and 8 kids from the Jerusalem school. And the plan was to have 8 kids from Ancori High School on the Jewish side, and to get 8 kids from the Promise School. The problem is that the day that we were supposed to have the second program with the Promise School in Ancori, that was the morning that terrorists went into the synagogue in Har Nof and murdered these 5 rabbis. So I was at the Jewish school. We were waiting for the Arab kids to come. The students from the Jewish school had made a big welcome sign in English, Hebrew, and Arabic, and they were all so excited. And then when I called up Amal, she told me that the parents were too scared to let their kids even leave the house. They didn't even go to school that day. Because, obviously, as we know, when something like this happens, the Israeli authorities are out there trying to find out who did it and trying to catch them to see who else is associated. And so it's just not a safe time for anybody. So they ended up staying in their houses so they couldn't come to the program, and everyone was very disappointed. So that never happened. That never happened. Now, we're hoping in February to redo that program. I did want to share with you a little bit about what the workshops actually look like. Yeah. So what happens is that we decide which school that they're going to go to first. I know in Jerusalem, generally, I advise that we start with the Jewish school, just because West Jerusalem is generally less of a problem, even security-wise, than East Jerusalem. When we did do the programs in November, we realized that the situation was too volatile for us to take the Jewish kids out to the actual Jerusalem school in Beit Hanina. So we had to come up with a solution. So the only solution that I could find was in Western Jerusalem in Rehavia, there's the Islamic Art Museum. So it's run by an Arab Israeli by the name of Nadim. He's amazing, worked with the Jerusalem Foundation for years. And their curricula is to try to educate the Jewish and Israeli community about Islamic art. And it's a beautiful building, so we ended up doing the program there, which is an abridged version. That's generally not what we do. What I was mentioning earlier is one of the things that the kids love the most is that when they go to the partnering school, the kids that are hosting them actually give them a tour around the school, which for the kids is a big deal because the Arab kids have never been in a Jewish school. The Jewish kids have never been in an Arab school. And it's just a real kind of eye-opener as to what it's like kind of for kids their age on the other side. And then they sit down and they hear a bit about the program. We show them a bit of a PowerPoint to learn a little bit about Todd's background and why we got started and what our purpose is. And then after that, everybody gets together. We do some musical group dynamic activities just to kind of break the ice. And then the kids sing a song together. We choose a song that everybody knows, often Hallelujah, done by Shrek, because the kids know that one, or whatever, Hey Ho, which has been the latest with the luminaries or whatever they're called. And then after that, we break up into groups, and the kids that are into the music aspect, they work on the musical aspect, and the kids that are into writing work on writing the song. And once again, the purpose of the workshop is to, within 2 days, to come up with a song that they've written, that they've come up with the music for, and that they actually perform in front of the cameras. Yeah. And we actually videotape the whole process. So when we're able, we actually incorporate the 2-day process into the video clip of the final song that the kids are singing. We involve the kids in the videotaping as well. And something else we've incorporated this year is to do 3 separate video clips each one for 30 seconds, that the kids themselves create and film and orchestrate, that's based on whatever the theme is. And the theme that we're doing this year is, last year it was The Other Is Me, and this year is We Refuse to Be Enemies.
Wow. And why does music bridge a gap?
Well, music, as we all know, is a universal language. It doesn't matter what kind of music we love. We know that it can put us in a mood. It can help us pull out of a mood. When we're in certain headspace, we need to be surrounded by certain music of different atmosphere. It definitely creates an atmosphere where you can connect to your own feelings and to the people around you. And in reference to the kids, we know them. They walk around with their iPhones and with their iPads and their iPods and or stuck to their computer or whatever, that they're constantly singing in their head and involved with something that has to do with music. So it's definitely something that they're connected to. It's interesting to see that when you get Palestinian and Arab kids together with the Jewish Israeli kids, you see that they're often listening to the same musicians, the same type of music. They know the same type of music, and which is really interesting because we know that they come from total different backgrounds. Yeah. Yet when it comes to music, it's a place where everybody meets.
That's good. Now, in the Middle East, are some people against the work that you do?
I can tell you that, for instance, I went to one Arab community center to see if we could do projects out of there, because I was actually approached by a community center in a tour that really wanted to get involved and to do after school programs together with Matnas on the Jewish side. The problem is that we couldn't come up with enough English speakers. Yeah. So we needed to attach ourselves to another Matnas, and I went to a different Matnas who said that they find that they're leery of collaborating with Israelis. They claim that their building was burned down 3 times because of collaborations. I was told in the Arab community that's not true, but that's what he had told me. I think on a basic level, kids getting together, people kind of, I haven't felt so much resistance to that. It's not the type of a program where they won't be supervised. It's a finite program. They establish relationships that are under kind of certain circumstances, under certain supervision, where teachers are involved, so that there's a real finger on the pulse. I have not personally heard anybody say anything overtly negative and against this program, even during these really hot times in the summers and in November. And I know from my personal experience, when I was working with the Arab Jewish Youth Orchestra, and they couldn't get Arab kids involved, and it was during the Second Intifada, and everyone on the Jewish kind of side thought that it was because of politics, and it was just a matter of networking. Once the leaders in the Arab communities knew what was going on, and the parents knew that kids would have the opportunity to learn music, we had more Arab kids in the program in the height of the Intifada than we had Jewish kids. So it's just a matter of relaying it in the right way, having the right people involved where they trust you. Like if they see that you, as project coordinator, as I am, is someone that have your heart in the right place, you're not biased on any direction, and you're open to hearing what the parents have to say and what the kids have to say, as well as the staff that are involved through the school system, everybody seems to think it's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Now, what sort of results do you see?
Well, something that I learned from my involvement years ago with Seeds of Peace is that it just takes one friendship to change your entire paradigm. It's very hard to hate an entire people if you have friends, even one friend on the other side. So what we saw through Seeds of Peace, when there was terrorism going on, that the kids were in a panic. If there was an explosion in downtown Jerusalem, kids were on Facebook talking with each other, because first of all, you never know if it's a Jewish kid or an Arab kid. When a bus is blown up, like we know from what happened with the drive into that crowd, the first person to die was Druze. So it's terrorism damages and kills everyone, and it's very scary to everybody. So it established a relationship with the kids in that they no longer see the other side as a nation. They see the other side as people, as individuals, and it really messes up their hatred paradigm.
Are lifelong friendships formed through this?
Right. Lifelong is hard to tell because the program has not been around that long. I know my understanding is that what happens in the States where these kids have been involved with each other for the past 10 or 11 years, that they remain in contact with each other and do things together, and it's really changed things and established some strong relationships over there. What's happened here that I found is that once they've come together for the 2-day workshop, the next thing we know, they're on Facebook saying, when are we getting together again? So it sparks an interest to excite them. So we're doing follow-up programs. As a matter of fact, we were just approached by X Factor. If you know what that is, it's the Israeli form of American Idol. And they're interested in us getting our group to perform at the X Factor and tell the whole backstory about Music in Common and the importance of using music to bring different sides together. After this happened, there was a big story on Ynet with the film of the kids once we came out with the Hartman project together with the Jerusalem School. After that, we were picked up by Channel 2, the kids channel. After that, there was a meeting in Jerusalem of all of the principals, East and West, and they asked the kids to come and talk about the importance of collaborating. They showed the film of the kids singing. So we've just seen that even though we only accomplished one little program, the effects on that is like the ripples, right? Yeah. Who was it that says you throw a stone in the water and the ripple effect will go forever? Yeah. I think it's your guy. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing, that the ripples are just getting larger and larger and turning into waves. And I really think I can share something with you. I had a meeting with the principal or the headmaster of the Anglican school. He himself, his name is Lawrence Hilditch, and he was involved for years since he was a kid in the situation over in Ireland. His parents were very active in what was eventually called Friends Forever, which I used to work with as well, bringing together the Protestant and the Catholic side. They were so embroiled in that situation over there and so alienated from the rest of the universe, they didn't even know what a Muslim or a Jew was. And when they were introduced to Muslims and Jews, when they met the Muslim, they said, "Are you a Muslim Catholic or a Muslim Protestant?" That's how absurd it was and how enwrapped that they were with this conflict of theirs that the entire world evolved around. And what Lawrence saw through his parents that insisted on making a difference and were very involved with the whole change over there is that those kids that were involved with the Friends Forever program, where they brought together these kids, took them out of the country of Ireland, had them get together just in entertainment. We had them in Orlando, Florida. We had them over in various places in Europe, getting to know each other as individuals. Thousands and thousands of kids went through this program, and from what Lawrence tells me, those kids grew up and created a whole new tapestry of adults living in Ireland who refused to keep living like this. And he really believes that it was those Friends Forever kids that made the change in Ireland. Wow. And his belief was, if we could do it over there, we could do it over here.
Yeah, well. Why do you do what you do?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Wow. Since I was a kid, I really believed that one person can make a very big difference. And I was able to do it in junior high with my friends. They used to call me Mom. Then later when I was in high school, I was very active in a local youth movement and started the first Holocaust project exhibit in that high school. Actually, there had been no Holocaust studies in the city of Orlando ever. And the first was started by me and my family and my youth movement in our particular high school. And then from there, it went on from there. I just saw that if you really want to make a change, you can. And all it takes is one person. From there, I went on to college campuses and started movements on college campuses and saw the power, again, that one person can make. And then when I came over to Israel, Israel's a playground for pioneers. Everything you do here, you feel like you can find things that haven't been done before. You can definitely find your niche. You can see that you can have a profound effect on the universe, because whatever changes you make in Jerusalem has a profound effect on Israel, has a profound effect on the Palestinian territories, has a profound effect around the world. You can't can't look at a newspaper without finding Israel somewhere, probably within the first 2 pages. So coming here was very exciting for me. So I knew that anything I do here would even have a bigger effect. And getting involved with, actually, my background is in addictions, and I was working with kids that were addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I came back over to Israel and wanted to work in the field of addictions. So I was hired by a methadone clinic. Now, what was interesting about the Jerusalem Methadone Clinic is that a fairly large portion of the patients are actually Arab. They're Palestinian, Arab, and Arabs and Arab Israelis, and they within the methadone clinic, even though it was during the Intifada that I was working there, you didn't feel it. Everybody was on the same course. Everybody was kind of equal. There was no differentiation between the nations. We were also working with the children as well. So I had the opportunity to kind of combine all of my lives together and to work with the kids, the Arab kids and the Jewish kids together through creative means, because they couldn't necessarily speak Hebrew and they couldn't necessarily speak Arabic, and none of them spoke English. So they had to find a way to communicate with each other, and we were able to do it through music and through movement and the arts. So that was really exciting for me. That's how I got involved with the Arab Jewish Youth Orchestra, because they asked me. They knew that I had lots of contacts in the Arab community as well. And so I embarked upon my life in coexistence from my work in the methadone clinic. I went back to the States for a number of years and moved to Orlando, where one of the international board members for Seeds of Peace lived, and he was the one who actually funded the Jerusalem Seeds of Peace office building. They had a whole center here, van they called the Ginsburg after him, Allen Ginsburg. And I met with him and I said, Allen, I think we need to start a project here on the ground in Orlando. That community, like a lot of communities in the United States, the Arab community and the Jewish community hate each other because they don't know each other, and they're throwing pot shots at each other through the local newspaper, just really generating more and more hatred. And what I was able to do through Seeds of Peace was to bring the leaders of the Arab community and the Jewish community together to sit together at the same table, talk about the fact that we want to support the Seeds of Peace project, which is based on kids. Whenever you bring kids into the equation, even the most hardened of hearts starts to warm. And what they found was that the head of the Arab community, the Arab American community in Orlando, and the head of the Jewish American community in Orlando were both from Jersey. They had so much in common. They ended up being best of friends. And so we put together lots of galas and events for Seeds of Peace. But the last thing I did there was a stand-up comedy. We brought in a group that, a couple, a Jewish guy and a Palestinian guy, who does stand-up for peace. And we did it in a Lebanese restaurant, and we had the Arab community there and the Jewish community there. And then when I ended up going back to Israel, they ended up collaborating and communicating for the very first time. So I was able to kind of leave that and come back here and start all over again, which was very exciting, very exciting. And then when I came back to Jerusalem this time, I had a couple of goals. One of them, I wanted to start up a community activist organization, which would be a part of the Hands-On Network. I don't know if you're familiar with them because I had them over in Europe, but the Hands-On Network is a project that it brings community members together who don't know each other to do volunteer activities. And what our byline was when I worked for Hands-On Orlando as the volunteer coordinator was sign up, show up, have fun, and make a difference. So what you would basically do is go online, see what volunteer projects are happening in a particular evening where you have time. If it was something that would interest you, if it was painting a playground or fixing up a park or cleaning off toys in a hospital or reading to seniors or whatever they had going on, if it's something that interested you, so you would just sign up online, you would show up, you'd meet new people, be purpose oriented, make a big difference, and feel good about yourself. And it's a great way to spend an afternoon or an evening. So what I wanted to do was to form a Hands-On Jerusalem, where we would bring together Muslims, Jews, Christians, Arabs, Israelis, to get together and focus on how we're going to make our community better. And I wanted to start with kids. So I thought that would be just a wonderful way to create some type of a collaboration and understanding between each other. But because I came back, and people like me, I often have 6 or 7 pots on the fire. I didn't get to that. I shelved it. In the meantime, I was back in the methadone clinic working with these families and started a program for Ethiopian Jewish kids to help them feel good about themselves through the arts. Through that, I managed to make it to Music in Common. And through Music in Common, what I've been able to do is also involve that idea for the very first time. And I've been here now 7 years. Whereas initially, they'll get together with the Music in Common workshop. But after that, when the kids want to continue to see each other, we put together a steering committee. They'll decide what they want to do. But part of what we want to do is to give back to the community. It may be through music, through singing. It may be through singing together with fixing up a mutual park or a playground or whatever the kids decide to do. But my original vision was that each month, if we did it on a monthly basis, would be in a different community. 1 month would be in the Arab community, 1 month in the Jewish community, maybe 1 month in the Christian community, for the kids to just get to know each other as individuals and feel that the power that I always felt growing up as a kid, that one person can make a difference.
And what's your prayer finally for the Holy Land, for unity?
Wow. I guess my prayer is that everybody will feel good about who they are and confident about who they are, love themselves as God has created them, and where they fit into the picture. If it's as a Jew to be a proud Jew, if it's a Christian to be a proud Christian, if it's a Muslim or Arab to be a proud Arab, be you Christian Arab or a Muslim Arab. The minute that that people and kids in particular feel good about who they are as a person and as a nationality, it's much easier for them to develop a relationship with someone who's different from them, because they don't feel apologetic. They're not trying to convince other people that they are who they're not. So my prayer is that people will learn to love themselves for who they are and what they are, and learn to appreciate other people for who they are and for what they are, and that will lead us to peace in the Middle East.
Okay, Tracey, well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It was great meeting you, Paul.